You shouldn't judge a film by its Rotten Tomatoes score, but it is a valuable metric, and sometimes a Rotten Tomatoes score tells a story that perfectly describes a movie. When the review embargo lifted on The Mandalorian and Grogu, it was almost unanimous 3 out of 5 scores across the board, and it settled into a barely fresh rating in the low 60s that seemed to suggest a very safe, by-the-numbers, mediocre, middle-of-the-road, fun but not particularly memorable extended episode of the TV show, and that is exactly what this is. It's not a bad movie at all, but there's nothing that makes it particularly great either. It's exactly what you're expecting. It's more of The Mandalorian, but now in movie form.
I wonder, will we ever see each other again?
Who knows? God willing, we'll all meet again in Spaceballs 2. The search for more money.
From the very first shot, The Mandalorian and Grogu feels exactly like an episode of the TV show. The scale of the sets, the blocking and coverage of the scenes, it all screamed TV. My first thought was, oh great, we're just watching season 4 at the cinema. But then Mando knocked an AT-AT off the side of a mountain, and Zeb from Rebels came to pick him up in a new Razor Crest, and they were bantering like old friends while chasing Imperial fugitives, and I thought, oh great, we're watching season 4 at the cinema. If you like watching episodes of The Mandalorian, as I do, then you'll at least have a good time with this film, as I did. Because this is basically a bunch of episodes stacked on top of each other and bolstered with a bigger VFX budget.
Are you scared? You should be. Do we run? Or do we fight? I like this kid.
Honestly, I think Disney's a bit late to cash in on the character's popularity. This would have been the biggest movie of 2022, but they're not exactly striking while the iron's hot in 2026, a full 3 years after the last season of the show left audiences crushingly underwhelmed. There's been a bit of a Toy Story 4, Toy Story 5 situation with the last few years of The Mandalorian. Mando and Grogu's story got the absolute perfect ending when Luke Skywalker came to train Grogu as his Padawan, and he and Mando said their goodbyes. I couldn't imagine a better ending for the series, or for those two characters, but that was just 2 seasons in, and Disney weren't nearly done cashing in on the Baby Yoda craze. So they hastily reunited Mando and Grogu in a subplot of a spin-off that a lot of people skipped, and they've been terrified to disrupt the status quo ever since. Much like the Clone Wars movie that my parents still resent me for dragging them to, The Mandalorian and Grogu is basically just 3 or 4 episodes of the TV show stitched together and released as a feature film like they used to do in the 60s.
2 big-screen, feature-length, action-packed Man from U.N.C.L.E. movies.
It doesn't feel like watching the TV show get extrapolated and expanded for the big screen. It's just like binge watching the first half of the next season in a cinema. There must have been some superficial rewrites to turn these season 4 episodes into a movie, but the episodic structure is undeniable. I counted at least 2 points in the film where the end credits would have gone between the episodes. But at least they're good episodes. The Peaky Blinders movie felt like 2 episodes stitched together, and they weren't even particularly good episodes. The repurposed season 4 episodes featured in The Mandalorian and Grogu, Mando and Zeb working for the New Republic, Rotta the Hutt fighting monsters for sport, the Hutt sending a bounty hunter for Mando, etc. All would have been fun enough episodes if they'd stayed that way. But they're not even big, momentous episodes. The movie just stretches one of Mando's infamous side quests to feature length. Nothing of consequence happens in the whole movie. If you skip the film and just go straight into season 4 or whatever they do next, you won't have missed anything important. You could go from the season 3 finale to whatever the season 4 premiere is, miss the film completely, and still be able to follow what's going on. It's a sad state of affairs if you missed more by skipping the Book of Boba Fett than the actual fucking Mandalorian movie. The one scene where the stakes are genuinely high and it's unclear if Mando will make it out alive, it's cribbed straight from Pedro Pascal's other parent-child sci-fi franchise. In The Mandalorian and Grogu, exactly like in The Last of Us, Pedro Pascal's character sustains a serious abdomen injury, the roles of protector and protectee are reversed, and his kid drags him to safety, brings him antibiotics, and ultimately saves his life. It even copies the bit where Ellie lies with Joel and sleeps next to him while he recovers.
It's funny you should say that, because I was looking through some old photos and it looks very, similar.
The Mandalorian and Grogu doesn't go much bigger than the TV show, but the TV show was already about as big as you can get. And while it doesn't really justify the move to theaters, beyond the obvious financial incentive, the movie does have a couple of really cinematic visuals that looked incredible on the big screen. Like when a bounty hunter comes for Mando on a rainy night under the cover of thunder and lightning, and it looks like a Kurosawa samurai movie. The movie has some priceless sight gags with Grogu and his little engineer sidekicks. It's worth the price of admission for their little Gremlins adventure alone. There are some really cool action sequences too, and some that recapture capture the grit of Season 1. In Seasons 2 and 3, The Mandalorian's action got a lot less brutal, and it felt safer and more weightless. But the fight scenes in the movie feel like Season 1 fight scenes, with John Wick level badassery. There are a couple of really well executed one-ers where the camera swoops around a room while Mando effortlessly takes out a squadron of stormtroopers, and it's pure popcorn movie magic. It often feels like you're watching Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni play with their old Star Wars action figures, and I mean that in a good way. You can really feel their passion for this franchise. But almost everyone in the cast seems to be phoning it in. Pedro Pascal gives 95% of the lead performance in this movie via ADR. He takes his helmet off for a contractually obligated 2-minute cameo so they could show his face in the trailer, then it goes right back on. Jeremy Allen White seems to have spent an afternoon in a sound booth, half asleep, churning out his lines as Rotta the Hutt. Sigourney Weaver's role has been massively overhyped. She brings her all, but she's barely given anything to do. This isn't Ellen Ripley in A Galaxy Far, Far Away. It's a couple of stale exposition scenes that could have been done by anyone. Martin Scorsese is great in his Motormouth cameo, although it would have been nice if that was kept a surprise and not spoiled in the trailer. And the Grogu puppetry is still off the charts great. It still makes a world of difference to the on-screen dynamic to have an actual physical puppet in front of the camera, which we recently saw done so beautifully with Rocky in Project Hail Mary. And while Pascal is almost never actually on set, his stand-in Brendan Wayne is still doing a great job with Mando's distinctive body language. He's got his granddad's signature swagger, and he brings an authentic air to the Western gunslinger archetype. It's great to have Ludwig Göransson, hot off his latest Oscar win, back on full-time scoring duties. As his career took off, he delegated a lot of his Mandalorian responsibilities to Joseph Shirley, and he did a fine job. But Göransson is the film composer of his generation. He's our modern-day John Williams or Bernard Herrmann, the safest pair of hands in the business, writing music only for the very best directors. And with his music in The Mandalorian and Grogu, he goes bigger and bolder. The orchestrations are much grander, the tunes are much more sweeping and epic. He's really playing for those massive cinema speakers. The first Star Wars movie in 7 years is a huge improvement over the last Star Wars movie, The Rise of Skywalker, in that it actually tells a somewhat coherent story with the semblance of a dramatic arc. But it's nowhere near the highs of A New Hope or The Empire Strikes Back, or even some of the more flawed but still pretty great Star Wars films like Return of the Jedi or Revenge of the Sith or Rogue One. It's just a very familiar, risk-averse, pedestrian Star Wars adventure. I hated The Last Jedi, but I'd rather watch something like The Last Jedi, a bold experiment with a unique point of view from a visionary filmmaker trying something totally different, than the glass of warm milk that is The Mandalorian and Grogu. This movie doesn't take a single risk. It doesn't make a single consequential change to the status quo of the TV show. There was a brief moment where I thought Favreau was actually about to kill off the Mandalorian, and I was getting ready to praise his balls, but then Mando was predictably saved by a Deus Ex Grogu, and any hope of this movie making itself feel worthwhile went down the pisser. The Mandalorian and Grogu, or as it should have been called, The Mandalorians, is entertaining enough to make for solid Friday night at the movies fare. It hits the bar, even if it doesn't go above and beyond. It's fine. I would have preferred better than fine, but for a TV project that got ham-fisted into a theatrical feature film a la Moana 2, fine will do. When it comes to a hasty movie adaptation of an already over-the-hill TV show, I'll take fine. For a movie that came together more from corporate mandates and franchise resuscitation than a clear cinematic vision, fine is practically a masterpiece.
Is that what we're going for now? Okay. We used to go for pretty good.
Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked the video. Remember to like and subscribe and click on the little bell. And also seize the day and call your mom and be kind to yourself.